Jack Ma was once the face of entrepreneurial success. His rags-to-riches story was one that inspired millions. As the founder of Alibaba, he built a business empire that transformed the global e-commerce landscape and made him one of the wealthiest individuals in China. But what most people don't know is that Jack Ma's journey to the top was just as remarkable as his dramatic fall. This is the story of how the Chinese Communist Party dismantled Ma's business, humbling him, stripping him of his wealth, and sending a message to every entrepreneur in China. No one, no matter how rich or powerful, is beyond the reach of the state. The fall of Jack Ma is more than just a personal tragedy. It's a cautionary tale for anyone hoping to build something big in China. The story begins in Hangzhou, where Jack Ma's humble beginnings set the stage for his later success. Ma was born in 1964 to a poor family. His parents were traditional musicians, performing ancient Chinese storytelling. Despite their modest lifestyle, Ma grew up in an environment that nurtured his communication skills that would prove invaluable as he later captivated audiences around the world. However, Ma wasn't a typical academic star. Unlike Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, Ma struggled in school. He failed the entrance exams to college twice before finally gaining admission on his third attempt. And even then, it wasn't his mathematical abilities that earned him a spot, it was his proficiency in English. He spent years practicing the language by guiding foreign tourists around his hometown of Hangzhou. While his peers were focused on academics, Ma learned to use language as a bridge between cultures. Before he became the tech mogul we know today, Jack Ma faced rejection after rejection. After graduating, he applied for over 30 jobs, only to be turned down by all of them, including KFC, which famously rejected him for a restaurant position. He was undeterred, though. These early setbacks only fueled his desire to prove himself. By the mid-1990s, as China began opening up to the world, Ma realized that the internet could be a game-changer for the country. He launched his first internet venture, an online business directory called China Pages. This was just the beginning, but it gave Ma his first taste of the potential of the digital world. At the time, very few people in China knew what the internet was, but Ma had a vision. He believed that China's manufacturers had the potential to become global suppliers, and the internet could connect them with buyers all over the world. Despite his lack of technical knowledge, he persisted in his pursuit of the digital revolution. The internet was still in its infancy in China, and many people didn't understand the potential of online business. But Ma was ahead of the curve. By 1999, he co-founded Alibaba with a group of friends. The idea behind Alibaba was simple but revolutionary. Create an online platform to connect Chinese factories with international buyers. This was a time when China's manufacturing industry was booming, but it lacked an efficient way to connect with global markets. Alibaba's success was nothing short of phenomenal. By the early 2000s, it became clear that Ma's vision had struck a chord. Alibaba grew rapidly, attracting millions of users and transforming the way businesses engaged in international trade. By 2005, Alibaba was one of the largest e-commerce platforms in China, and Ma's status as a business icon was firmly established. In 2014, Alibaba went public in what was the largest IPO in history at the time, raising an astounding $25 billion. This move solidified Ma's position as a global tech mogul, and his success story became a symbol of China's rise as a tech powerhouse. He had done what few had imagined possible. He had built a global business from the ground up in one of the most competitive markets in the world. Ma's influence wasn't just limited to China. He was invited to speak at international conferences, where he became a face of China's emerging tech industry. His public persona grew larger than life. He became an ambassador for Chinese innovation. He was the epitome of China's capitalist dream, a self-made billionaire who had conquered the world with nothing more than vision, persistence, and the internet. But despite his meteoric rise, Ma's relationship with the Chinese government remained complex. Although he was a member of the Communist Party, he kept his distance from political matters. He didn't cozy up to the CCP in the way that many other Chinese business leaders did. This approach was deliberate. Ma often told his employees, "Love the government, but don't marry them." In other words, he wanted to play the game without getting too involved in the politics. As Alibaba expanded, so did Ma's influence. He became one of China's most recognizable figures, a symbol of entrepreneurship and innovation. But with power and influence came the inevitable scrutiny. In 2015, Ma's public criticism of Chinese regulators during a dispute over counterfeit goods on Alibaba's platform raised eyebrows. Instead of quietly accepting the criticism, Ma responded defiantly, calling out the regulators on social media. While Alibaba eventually reached a resolution with the government, this public spat was seen as a challenge to the authority of the CCP. As Alibaba's influence grew, Ma's words and actions began to attract more attention from the Chinese government. His ability to speak publicly and engage with global leaders started to worry officials in Beijing. Ma's speeches were often laced with criticisms of China's political system, and as his profile grew, so did his ability to sway public opinion. In a country like China, where the government tightly controls all forms of media and public discourse, this was seen as a direct challenge to the CCP's authority. Things came to a head in 2020 when Jack Ma delivered a speech at the Bund Financial Summit in Shanghai. During his address, he criticized China's financial system, calling it outdated and in need of reform. His comments were seen as a direct attack on the CCP's control over the financial sector. He argued that China's banking regulations were stifling innovation and that the country needed to embrace new financial technologies. For Ma, this speech would be his undoing. The Chinese government saw his comments not as a critique, but as a threat to its authority. They feared that Ma was using his influence to push for a new order that could challenge the CCP's control over the economy. The government moved quickly to rein in Ma's influence. Just days after Ma's speech, the Chinese regulators halted the much-anticipated IPO of Ant Group, Alibaba's fintech arm. Ant Group had been on track to break all records as the largest IPO in history, but it was suddenly suspended. This move sent shockwaves through the business world and signaled that the CCP was prepared to act decisively to curb Ma's growing power. But the cancellation of Ant's IPO was just the beginning. The CCP moved to dismantle Ma's empire piece by piece. Ant Group was forced to restructure its operations and divest certain parts of its business. The government also imposed stringent new regulations on the company, effectively limiting its ability to operate freely. The government even took stakes in Ant Group, ensuring that Ma's once untouchable business was now under its control. At the same time, the government launched an investigation into Alibaba for anti-competitive practices. In 2021, the company was hit with a record $2.8 billion fine for violating China's antitrust laws. This fine was just the first in a series of actions that crippled Alibaba's operations. Other services, such as Alibaba's popular internet browser, were shut down. The company's stock price plummeted, and its market value dropped by billions. Amidst this turmoil, Jack Ma disappeared from public view. Once the face of Alibaba, he was suddenly nowhere to be found. He had been a constant presence in the media, but now he was gone. Events that had been scheduled for him were canceled, and the company appeared rudderless without its charismatic leader. Rumors spread that Ma had been detained by the authorities, while others speculated that he had fled the country to avoid arrest. Whatever the truth, his sudden absence only heightened the sense that something was deeply wrong. The once vibrant empire he had built seemed to crumble in his absence, and investors grew nervous. Over the next several months, Jack Ma reappeared briefly in public, but his appearances were few and far between. He gave a few speeches, but they lacked the energy and boldness of his earlier days. It became clear that Ma's relationship with the CCP had soured, and he was no longer the freewheeling businessman he had once been. His fall from grace was both swift and brutal. By 2021, Ma's fortune had taken a dramatic hit. His personal wealth, once valued at over $40 billion, had been drastically reduced. His once powerful position as China's richest man was overtaken by others, and his influence in China had evaporated. Ma had been humbled, his empire shattered by the CCP's aggressive crackdown. The government's actions weren't just about punishing Ma. They were about sending a message to China's other entrepreneurs. The CCP wanted to make it clear that no one, not even the most successful tech moguls, was above the government's control. The Chinese business community watched closely as Ma's empire was dismantled, knowing that their fate could be the same if they stepped out of line. The fall of Jack Ma is a cautionary tale about the dangers of rising too high in China's tightly controlled political environment. No matter how powerful or wealthy you become, the Communist Party is always in charge. Entrepreneurs like Ma may have the ability to shape markets and drive innovation, but when they step outside the boundaries set by the CCP, they risk losing everything. For Jack Ma, The dream of building a global business empire was shattered when he dared to criticize the very system that helped him rise to the top. The future of Alibaba, Ant Group, and Jack Ma himself remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. In China, even the most successful entrepreneurs must stay in the party's good graces or face the consequences.